guys, welcome back to another movie review. This will be a no spoiler review, so no worries if you haven't seen it yet. But today we are reviewing American Assassin. This stars Dylan O'Brien, Taylor Kitsch, and Michael Keaton, which are all pretty big names. And we were pretty excited to see this. Based on the trailers, it is about a guy, Dylan O'Brien, who is hanging out with his girlfriend, fiance, we don't know in the trailers, and she ends up being the victim of a terror attack on a beach, and he ends up surviving and therefore trains himself to become a killing machine and therefore becomes an American assassin, but we're not quite sure in what way, and ends up meeting up with Michael Keaton along the way.
And it is based on a popular series of novels that we have not read.
Correct.
So we don't know much about the actual source material, but we'll let you know what we thought of the movie.
So for perspective of how this did publicly, before giving our personal opinions, this had a 30-something on Rotten Tomatoes, which granted is not always a 100% solid tell-all of how a movie is, but for reference, we did not love this movie.
Yeah, it was... I had mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, we both walked down and we're like, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't good. But I don't know why.
Yeah, we're a little confused about how to feel about it. And I think one of the biggest things is because the performances in this movie are actually really solid.
Mm-hmm. I think this is some of Dylan O'Brien's best work, and we've seen quite a bit of stuff that he is in, and this was a lot more of a serious role for him than things he's done in the past, and it was much more subtle in his reactions to things, which is not typical of what you see from him.
Honestly, Dylan O'Brien being the lead in this movie was a big reason why we went to go see it, because we really enjoy his work, and I think he shows in this movie that he has the chops. I really want him to get onto a really solid movie that does well, because I feel like he keeps getting on these projects that
Same
struggle.
for Taylor Kitsch, man. We both really like him, and he just seems to get stuck with crap roles.
Yeah, which, speaking of him, I felt like he did the best he could with the material.
Yeah, but
playing
he wasn't given much
the
more
villain. Yeah, but it seems like they didn't really give him a whole lot. And he was relegated more to just action scenes, no actual, learning about who he is.
So this movie, I think, struggled with its tone a little bit. It's very much an action movie, but sometimes presented as a, I don't know, what would you say?
Like a Cold War, spy novel, almost?
Yeah, it was like spy and action, which you can mix, obviously. Most spy, movies are action, but it almost couldn't decide which one it wanted to be or what kind of blend it wanted to be. It just switched between the two without, merging them.
Yeah, this movie from the get-go decides that it's going to be very serious, and it's going to stay serious for the entirety of the movie. And
there is no fun here.
And even some of the scenes where you feel like they're trying to be a little bit fun, I feel like fall flat.
Very. Just
because they have pushed so much, dark and gray and gloom and no fun here, that when they try and do those fun things, it honestly comes off a little weird. You start to go, wait, why are they acting that way all of a sudden? That's not like how they've acted for the last hour of the movie.
This is a very brutal movie. I mean, we start off with a pretty much a mass murder, and it was pretty graphic, which normally I don't have an issue with, but for some reason, I don't know, it tugged on your heartstrings, but too much, not in a way where you're like, oh, now I'm invested. It was... I don't know how to explain it, man.
There were a lot of parts of this movie that, in a typical action movie, you can see loss of life or something, and movies have to tell you how to feel, right? But this movie never really did that. Instead, they showed all this stuff, and it felt like they kind of just dumped it on you and left. So it's we're going to show these really terrible graphic things happening to people, and it leaves you feeling really bad, and then they expect you to hop scenes to a new thing and be invested in something, and you're too busy still I just feel weighed down by all the graphic violence, and sometimes gratuitous.
Very.
The performances carried this movie by far, like we said before.
But just by a thread.
And, I mean, there's a scene with Michael Keaton that was awesome, which I don't want to spoil for people,
No.
but it's pretty brutal, and he goes totally crazy, and those moments are really fun to watch with those characters, but when it's more action-based and the characters aren't there, I felt myself yawning, which I really don't tend to do in action movies.
Also, the villain motivation in this movie was very flimsy and honestly didn't make a lot of sense once you start to think through it. It was just but why?
Part of, I feel like, the weakness of this movie is they rely on a lot of the genre tropes. And a lot of
It's very cliche.
coincidences. So in a typical movie, you can only suspend so much disbelief. And when they try and go, well, this thing magically happened at this time, and then they just happen to see that guy, and then they just happen to have that happen, and by the end of it, you're like, well, there's no way all 82 of these crazy coincidences happened to let these characters get through. It starts to become unbelievable, which was kind of strange for a gritty, like, grounded movie.
Another thing I didn't particularly like about this movie was the cinematography. It was very close in the whole time, and I think you can do that well. However, with action movies, I much prefer wider shots, especially during the action scenes. I felt like it was so choppy and so zoomed in that you couldn't see all the cool moves and stuff, and there are quite a few. Like, you can tell Dylan O'Brien trained really hard for this, and a lot of the other characters as well, and it was too close to be able to actually see what they were doing and get a really big impact. Like, I felt like I was just being slapped in the face constantly during these scenes.
And even during dialogue, you end up begging for a wide shot, because typically they do like an over-the-shoulder back and forth, so you can see who's talking and also kind of see from the perspective of the person. But the camera would literally come right in front of their face and zoom in, and sometimes it'd zoom in somewhere weird. Like, I think what I noticed the most where they, like, zoomed in on Michael Keaton's, like, shoe. This is not a spoiler. And then, like, zoomed up to his face.
Oh, yeah. I was like,
and it was, like, super zoomed in on his foot, like, you're supposed to catch something, and zoomed up. But there was zero reason for it. And there was a lot of shots like that where we were like, why are you, like, suddenly zoomed in on this one thing? One of our other problems with the movie was that besides Michael Keaton and Dylan O'Brien, most of the characters felt one-dimensional. And we mentioned that the main villain feels one-dimensional, but almost all of the supporting cast feels that way too, and you have several, especially female characters throughout, who it feels like they decided that they were there for a specific purpose, and it's always very telling in a movie for any kind of character that if they're only there for a single purpose and the movie goes, that's their job and that's it, it tends to be kind of weak writing.
This movie also connected emotional strings to strange combos of people and focused too much on, like, way background characters instead of, like, the forefront characters and the main characters. So I'm like, you're trying to make me build these connections with these side characters, and I'm just sitting here just being like, give me more with the main characters. I don't have enough with these. So it was very strange how they chose to focus that. Overall, we were pretty disappointed by this. I think we were not expecting the most stellar movie, but at least something that was enjoyable, and ultimately it was not, because I think you can still enjoy, like, bad movies or movies that aren't great, but this one was just not one of those.
Based on the marketing, I really felt like it was going to be fun, and a lot of these bad movies end up being a lot of fun, especially the action type genre, and there was just not a lot of fun to be had, and I think that left us disappointed. But what did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. Did you guys actually like this movie? Did you really enjoy it? I'm sure there are some people out there, despite our criticisms. Let us know if you agree or disagree with what we had to say. As always, like this video if you enjoyed it. It helps us out a lot, helps our video get out there for more people. And if you want to see more of our videos, you guys can subscribe. We have a ton of movie reviews, different content, and if you want to watch some of those now, we'll have them right over here in the sidebar for you, and we'll see you on our next video.